Well, good morning. Happy Thursday. Thank you so much for joining me today for my weekly office hours. I'm here every single Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific to answer whatever questions about startups you have, from idea all the way to product market fit, with a big focus on traction. And traction is what happens outside the building, outside your head, with real customers. My name is JDM, aka Josh David Miller, and that's kind of what I do. I spend my days helping startups find traction. We've got some good stuff today to talk about. I'm going to begin with just our question of the day, the thing I'm curious to know about from you guys, which is, what's the next thing that you need to learn? And this is kind of one of the fundamental principles of finding traction, because traction's out there, because it involves behavior, because it involves doing with customers. There's always something that you're trying to learn. That's what we're trying to do, even if it's just learning, will they buy this at scale, which is maybe the ultimate form of traction, perhaps. But even way before that, it could be, do we know who the customer is? Do we know where they are and how to reach them? Do we know what message will resonate with them? Do we know how they would describe the problem? Do we know how what solution that they're looking for? Do we know how we're going to get them in? Do we know how we're going to get them to activate, to convert to revenue? Do we know how to retain them? Do we know how to get referrals going on? There's always something we're going to need to be learning. I'm really curious. Drop in the comments, what's something that you really need to learn right now about your organization. Let's get some conversation going about how maybe we can do that. So with that having been said, I think it's time to dive into some questions. And the first question that I have comes from a tech founder. We're going to be talking about prototypes because there's a prototyping cohort that I'm going to tell you about in a little bit that's coming up. It's kicking off in a week from Monday. So we're going to start with this simple question, which is prototyping the same as building an MVP? And this is a really common question that I get, because we use prototype colloquially as like the smallest version of the thing that we can build. And that's usually how we define a minimum viable product. It's the smallest version of the thing that we can build. So it's a really good question. Is a prototype the same as MVP? And the answer is actually no, emphatically not. A prototype and an MVP are two very, very different things. Let's start with an MVP, because it's in the contrast that I actually think is really important. And so when you're talking about a minimum viable product, there are three words there, and we'll take them in kind of reverse order. So a product, right, is the thing that you are attempting to offer to customers, and its viability speaks to that customers want to use it, and that you're creating value for them, delivering it in a certain way, capturing value for a particular customer, that kind of thing. But it is the smallest version of that little ecosystem that you can build, and that ecosystem is kind of big, right? It has to do with a customer for whom you're creating value, that you're delivering in a certain way, and for which you're capturing some value in return. So that's like this whole little ecosystem that you've got to set up. And so it's a thing. It's a robust thing. When we're talking about a prototype, we're not talking about that at all. A prototype is not the smallest version of the product that you can build. It's a facade of the product that you can build to get in front of put in front of real customers, rather, in order to learn something, or to get feedback, from them, or I like to talk about the wow moment. So if you create this little facade of this, let's say it's an app, and you put it in front of a customer, and you say, okay, now walk through it, narrate it, tell me what's going on in your head. And they go, okay, well, I click here, and then I do this because I'm trying to, and then, oh, this is kind of confusing, right? And you're getting data back, but then eventually, hopefully, if you do enough rounds of these prototypes, you iterate and keep building on the prototype to get something better and better. Eventually, you do land on something where they go, oh, wow, right? Like, you mean I could do that, and all I have to do is this? That's so much better than the status quo. Wow, right? That wow moment is what you're looking for in a prototype. So you're just doing enough of a facade that's in that Goldilocks zone of realistic looking, but you're not pretending it's real, and to get them to experience what it would be like to use it without actually having them use it. And you can prototype anything. You can prototype everything from software. That's the obvious one. You create screens and Google Slides and put it in front of a customer. But you can also prototype services. You can prototype communities. You can prototype physical products. You can prototype conversations. You can prototype literally anything. There's nothing out there that you can't prototype. So I strongly encourage that. And prototyping is not the same as MVP. If you do want to learn a little bit more about prototypes, just kind of find out, is this a thing? Is this for me? Is this interesting? The most recent episode of my podcast, Inside the Box with JDM, launched just a couple of days ago, earlier this week, and it's all about rapid prototyping. So we talk about the 4-step process of rapid prototyping, the kinds of prototypes that you can create, how you put a prototype in front of customers, what you do once you get the prototype in front of customers, and then how you get data back and what you do with that data in order to have great good in the world of prototyping, which can literally turn the odds of success around and put them in your favor. So much so that the average startup has a failure rate of about 95%, which means 19 out of 20 startups just fail, right? Done, boop, gone. But if you do 10 rapid prototypes, right, before you really get into building, if you do 10 rapid prototypes and put them in front of customers, you actually get that failure rate down around 50%. So it drops by about half. That's ridiculous. That's insane that you can get like 50-50 odds, the flip of a coin, just by doing 10 prototypes. And that's because you're guaranteeing desirability by getting, oh, wow, from customers as soon as you show them the thing, right? Or a facade of the thing. But even more crazy than that is if you up the game and you do 50 prototypes instead of 10, that failure rate drops to less than 20%, which means you've quite literally turned the odds of startup success in your favor by doing that. Absolutely ridiculous, absolutely crazy that you can do that. And it's because it's the most reliable way that you can test desirability for a product, is by actually like putting something in front of customers and testing their reliability. So awesome. Pretty good stuff. Strongly recommend you do that. You can check out the podcast episode if you're curious to learn a little bit more about that. And I mentioned earlier that the reason that I'm talking so much about prototyping is that I have a prototype cohort kicking off in just I guess a week from Monday. So as I'm doing this on October 6th, it's about a week and a half away. And the entire premise of this is inside 5 weeks, inside about 30 days plus a little onboarding, we're going to take 4 rounds of prototyping, and you're going to create a prototype, you're going to put it in front of customers, you're going to get data back, and you're going to do it 4 freaking times. And in that process, we're actually going to do some education, some live instruction that'll be recorded in case you can't make it. We got Q&A that's going on in there, so you can come and ask questions and co-work and figure out with the rest of the cohort and with me and some of my friends to develop these really strong, robust prototypes. We got all kinds of resources that we'll be offering as well, from templates and tools and swipe files and other cool shit that you can use to actually build a prototype. And plus you get the community, so you get access to all the other people in the cohort, kind of crowdsource some amazing stuff. And so because I've been talking about this cohort so much, I keep getting this question of is it right for me? And so I do want to answer that question, is the cohort right for me? But before I do, I actually just want to go through a quick overview of it itself. So if you were to hit up this URL, if you were to go to tractionthinking.com, this is what you'd see. This is the landing page here for the prototype cohort. And so basically, like I said, the premise, test the idea, we have customers in 30 days. I'm not going to reach this to you. That's ridiculous. But the goal is to find traction. That's why it's part of the traction thinking program that I do. The whole point is to find traction. Traction being the acquisition of confirmatory data from customers that you're on the right track. Right. So we're going to put prototypes in front of them, and you're going to find out if you're on the right track. We have the whole week schedule worked out here, so you can see we're going to start with some onboarding. This is going to be figuring out what you're going to prototype, how you're going to go about that process. Then week 2, we're going to work into why create prototypes, how do you create prototypes, what we're looking for, those wow moments. And this is when you're actually going to start just like creating a prototype and getting it out there and putting it in front of customers. But then in the next week, we're going to talk about customer interviews. We're going to figure out how you engage in those conversations really well, how you recruit customers, what success looks like. So a lot more about that wow moment, how you even structure the conversation to get good results, how you ask good questions and all of that. And then we're going to move into validated learning and iteration, how you get that data back, what you do with that information to create a better prototype, and then how you can pivot or persevere, and how you figure that whole process out. And then finally, in the 5th week, we call it demo week because we're going to go back. You're going to do another round of prototyping, but we're going to put all that information together and say, where'd you start? Where'd you go? What was your progress? And you're going to talk about it with the rest of the cohort. So 5 weeks of doing, which does take time. You're going to want to dedicate probably 10 hours a week to working on this. So this is only if you're pretty serious about what you're working on, because 10 hours a week is an investment, but it is a pretty big investment because it can pay off. Right. So I want to call that out and make sure that's really, really well known. So there's also some previous cohorts that we ran here, so you can check out some testimonials. You can see this is the kind of resources that I'm talking about. We got all kinds of live instruction plus the weekly office hours right on Zoom. You can ask me questions. You can ask my friends questions. We'll have community support, resources, all that, more testimonials. If you want to if you're curious about what other people say about these programs, you can just check these out too. Not going to bother reading those here. And this is an important part. Because I'm shilling awfully hard for this, and I do want you to know that even though I'm shilling awfully hard for this, it's actually free. You don't have to pay me anything to join this, because I partnered with my friends at the Sacramento Metro Business Center, and so they're footing the bill for this prototype. And so I just want as many people to get value out of this paid for thing already as possible. So really, really amazing that they were able to do that. I'm super grateful for that. So take advantage of that. Join this cohort completely for free and get that amazing value out of it. Oh, and then there's information about me, but who cares? And then some, FAQs, but I'm not gonna read those to you. You can do that on your own. So the question that I want to ask is the cohort right for me? And this is an important question. This is the one I'm probably getting most commonly, and there's a good reason why. But before I answer that, let's say hello to Mike. Mike's joining us here again. Missed you. It's been a little while since you've joined, but you've been prototyping, you've been pivoting. I want to know about that. Let me know in the comments. What have you been prototyping? What have you been running? You gotta let me know, Mike. Okay, so is the cohort right for you? So there are a couple things to keep in mind. So in order to do this well, you do have to have some basic understanding of what you think your value proposition is. So if you have no idea what your value proposition is, if you have no idea even how thing's going to work, if it's just like a crazy idea that's been sitting in the back of your head, might have a little bit of work to do, before jumping into something like this, because we're going to get to doing basically right away, like in week 1 on like day 2, we're going to get into doing stuff. So you need to have like a basic understanding of your value proposition, but you do not have to have any product developed at all. Because we're gonna even if you do have a product developed, we're gonna go around it anyway in order to do rapid prototyping. So if you have a product, that's fine. If you don't, that's also fine. That's totally cool. You don't have to have customers. You don't have to have revenue. You don't have to have anything like that. You don't have to have any prior experience. You don't even have to know what a prototype is, frankly. You just got to know that you want to put something in front of customers in order to get feedback rapidly to find traction. So that's number one. All you got to come in with is an understanding of your value proposition. Second is this is for people who are pretty serious about working on what they're on their startup. This is not pure educational, like an async course that you take at your own pace over 6 months because you were never going to really do anything with it anyway. No judgment, but like if that's the boat you're in, probably not the right program for you. Because again, this is going to be doing. You're going to actually create a prototype. You're going to put it in front of customers. You're going to get data back, and you're going to come tell us all how it went. And you're going to do it 4 times in 5 weeks. So you got to be ready to like get out there and really do. It means you got to want it, which is fantastic. I mean, it's your business at the end of the day. It's not mine. So we're adults. Like, I'm not gonna fail you or something like that. It's not that kind of thing. But if you want to get the most out of it, you got to be in that frame of mind. Which also means that the biggest resource that you have to bring to the cohort is time. Is you have to be able to spend 10, maybe 15 hours a week working on your startup. And so if you're not at a position where you can dedicate serious time to this, if it's still just a, not even nights and weekends, but more like it's just you spend an hour here or there, thinking about it, and but it's just the timing's not right for you. Like that's totally okay. Like that's fine. But this program probably isn't the best fit because you're going to need to put in some effort. You're going to need to put in some work, but you're going to be rewarded by making some pretty extraordinary progress in those 4 weeks, in the 4 weeks of prototyping that you do. So those are kind of the big picture things that I would say if it's right for you. So if you've got a basic understanding of your value prop, you want to find traction in the marketplace, you're serious about doing this, and you can dedicate 10 or 15 hours a week, that's all you really need. You don't need anything else to actively engage in this process, and you'll get extraordinary value out of it. I guarantee it. Not that you're paying me any money, but I still guarantee it. I'll put my reputation on the line for it. It's gonna be great. Thanks, June. I really hope to see you there. This program is entirely virtual, so I know you're not here in Sacramento, and that's totally fine. You can still attend. It's still great. You can still hop on board the cohort. I hope that you do. So I'm like, the product isn't ready to tangibly show to customers. So I'm building out a landing page. So I'm talking about specifically targeted potential early adopters. Yeah, that's great. Like a value prop prototype is actually a landing page, like value prop oriented prototype is fantastic. Those are brilliant. If you have one of the things that, and you're not asking a question here, but I'm going to pretend that you did in order to answer it. But one of the things that you can do is if you have like a place where all of your customers are hanging out, and so you know how to find them, and that's all great. And so then you want to go, put this a link in, maybe it's a social post, something like that they can click, and it lands on your landing page, and so they can go look at it. And then that's great. It's boom. It's fantastic. But if you don't have that, if you don't know how to actually get the landing page in front of customers, then the best thing to do is to do a prototype of the landing page. So you then create a probably just in Google Slides or Keynote or whatever your jam is, that you can create in like literally an hour. Like you're going to create a prototype in an hour of a landing page, put it in kind of customers, and see, have them narrate through the process. Does this make sense or whatever? Then you're gonna end up with a way stronger landing page because you've just put in front of customers, a few times this like this facade of what the landing page would look like. All you're really looking for in the landing page is, are they resonating with the message, whether that's just the problem, or whether it's problem plus solution, or it's problem plus solution plus buy now, or whatever it is that you're trying to test. You can see if it actually resonates with them in real time. And landing page prototypes are definitely going to be something that a lot of people are going to be working on during the cohort. So something to like think about and consider. May not apply to you at all, but definitely worth considering. In fact, there have been really large companies that did exactly that. In fact, Blue Bottle Coffee, they came up with their whole way of doing e-commerce, which was one of the reasons that they blew up as much as they did. The whole way that they did that was by starting with a prototype in order to figure out how people needed to buy coffee, like what they were looking for. And they wanted to say like, okay, well, when somebody comes into Blue Bottle, like into the shop in San Francisco, when they come into Blue Bottle and they go like, I want a bag of beans, but like, which one do you recommend? Like, you've got all these on the shelf there. Which one do you recommend? The baristas would just naturally walk through the process. They would say like, oh, well, what's your brewing method? Do you like dark? Do you like light? Do you like chocolate? Do you like fruit? Do you like acid? Right? They would naturally just ask them these questions in order to use their expertise in brewing these coffees to like guide them into the thing. And so what they want to know is, can we like figure that out online? Can we do that online? And so they did. Their prototype was literally just fake screens that they put together like in Keynote or something, and that showed those different steps of the process. So you just start on the home page with, pick your brewing method, and I don't remember all the steps, but they would guide through this process of buying coffee. And they just did that quick, rapid prototype that was part of a 5-day design sprint that they did in less than 1 day. So that prototype was all made entirely inside 1 day. They put it in front of customers, got great feedback, and then they can iterate on it. So it's that kind of thing isn't like small potatoes. It's used for like really like robust stuff. He said, you go into a conference with a bunch of potential customers in a couple weeks and have the landing page is going to be great. Yeah, totally. Right. And you can see like, you want to set up like some benchmarks of success, like some metrics, like what does it look like? How many visits to the site make the networking thing land, right? Did I do well at the conference? How many people landed on the site, like with a follow-up? And then you can measure their behavior afterward and see what they did. So that's fantastic. That's really awesome. Another question on the cohort: will prototyping help create a mission statement? I'm not sure entirely what you mean by mission statement. If you're referring to the traditional corporate mission, vision, values stuff, then no, and also don't waste your time doing it. If you're a startup, a mission statement is not really relevant. You want a North Star. You want a why, like we're doing this because, but that's an internal thing. It's for you, and nobody outside your company cares. And so if you're not doing that for company culture, then it's probably not the best use of your time. I'm paving over a bunch of cracks and crevices where this gets complicated and interesting, but just as a blanket statement for most people, that would be what I would say. But what it will help you do is actually figure out if the thing that you're trying to do is going to resonate with customers. And so it's not about the language that you use necessarily. It can be. You can prototype. When we were talking about the landing page, a lot of that's going to be the language that you use. And so you can be prototyping that in the context of delivering a landing page or social media ad or something like that. But you're testing their actual behavior in engaging with your thing under semi-real conditions. So it's less about the mission statement, unless it was the mission statement was what was on some type of thing that the customer was interacting with, and we wanted to see would that work well for them to interact with the mission statement in that context. And it's just probably not, because that's not usually what mission statements are for. Again, assuming I even have your definition of mission statement correct. I also just realized I was talking awfully fast through that, so sorry about that, June. Okay, and you want to prototype a way to purchase and delivery segment for small farms. Yeah, actually, that's the perfect case. It's like, because you want to start with, okay, so we have this thing, and then we'll actually go through in the cohort, is how do you pick the part of that complicated process, that big journey, right? How do you pick the part to actually prototype, right? Because you can't going to prototype the entire thing, then you're just building it, right? So how do you pick what part is to prototype, and then how do you create the prototype, and then how do you get that in front of customers, and then how do you collect the data so that you can go back and say, okay, were we right? Do we want to pivot? So that's actually a brilliant use case for prototyping. That's awesome. All right, back to Mike. I'll be sure to share with you offline. Yes, absolutely. I'm super curious. Definitely hit me up. You got my info. Hit me up and let me know how it goes. So yeah, so that's that. I will be back, of course, next Thursday, October 13th, 10 a.m. because I'm here every Thursday at 10 a.m. However, I have a thing that day, so I will be pre-recording it. I'll try to be in the comments and interacting with you that way, but I won't be recording in real time just because of circumstance. So definitely get your questions in sooner. That way I can actually answer your questions, and then again we can do the chat thing in real time. But hoping that you guys join me again next week. And that's all I've got. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me on this Thursday morning, or if you're watching this later at the time that's convenient to you. Thanks so much. Have a fantastic rest of your day and a great weekend, and I will see you guys next week.